Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, and without wanting to jinx anything, and aware that the orange one is extremely desperate and like a wounded animal will stop at absolutely nothing to turn his situation around. It appears that Joe Biden is going to be President of the United States in a few months' time. Still agrees me that it takes so long, and the choice of president, of course, is always of huge importance to the UK. And I mean, without downplaying the terrible decisions of our government at the time, let's say Al Gore had won in the year 2000, hard to see how the Iraq War would have happened. The consequences of which have been dreadful for both nations. If Trump hadn't won in 2016, the Conservatives may not have been sufficiently emboldened to pursue such a hard Brexit. After all, without the approval of the US, where are Johnson's Brexit allies? And now, with Joe Biden about to become president, we think, another choice of president is going to determine the path of the UK yet again. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, in the past, when people have sort of asked me and I've talked about, so what's the prospect of a Biden administration's attitude towards a US-UK trade deal? I have pointed out that many of Trump's proposals are actually good for America. The ability of their farmers to undercut our farmers, for example, would be a huge boost to America's agricultural sector. Similarly, any president that strikes a deal that makes the UK pay way over the odds for American medicines and stops us being allowed to buy equivalent medicines elsewhere where they're cheaper, well, such a president can insist that the pharmaceutical companies charge less for American customers. Too many people seem to look to Biden as hope for steering the UK away from an excessively damaging Brexit. But it would be Biden's duty to bat for America, not Britain. However, that's not to say that there are no consequences for Brexit as a result of this change in course across the Atlantic. I just don't see how there's a good prospect for a good US-UK trade deal. But the consequences for Brexit, largely twofold. One, major one, Ireland. Ireland is a very serious issue for both Democrats and Republicans, that has to be stated. But Trump doesn't care about Americans, so personally wouldn't give a crap about the Irish on a personal level. But equally, on a personal level, Biden is very different. Not just because he's a generally thoroughly good bloke, but because he identifies very strongly as Irish American. And he is also a lot more decent than Donald Trump. He will absolutely stand up for Ireland. If the Conservative government have any notion of a working relationship with the White House over the next few years, it is going to involve paying somewhat closer attention to Ireland. They will no longer be able to ignore it or to dismiss concerns. They may even have to learn where it is. They might even have to visit from time to time. Now, the second thing is that there have been reports of influential advisors for the Democrats. One in particular suggested that Boris Johnson is absolutely toxic for many people at the top of the Democrats, potentially including Joe Biden himself. And the UK is not going to get very far with the US unless it secures a good deal with the EU. Now, I was discussing this more recently because there were reports coming from Downing Street, unattributed of course, as they always are, that the decision on an EU deal might depend upon the presidential race. Initially, this came from the EU side. There were many people in the EU convinced that Boris Johnson wanted to wait. Then we started to hear things from this side as well. If Johnson wanted to keep working with Trump, then obviously he had to leave the EU without a deal at all. Not even a paper-thin deal would be good enough. However, they'd also need a deal to get anywhere with Biden. It was the ultimate, oh my God, damned if you don't, damned if you do. Now, I don't know how true it all was, but here we have an actual attributable comment from a Democrat advisor saying that as well. Now, this puts huge pressure on Boris Johnson to strike a deal with the EU. But like I said, a paper-thin deal won't really be enough long-term. Maybe for now be better than nothing. So come what may, he's also going to have to align himself much more closely with the EU, when in actual fact he's been steering us well away from the EU in order to deal with the US. This is a bit of a bugger. Boris Johnson, his whole government was pinning their hopes on a Trump win. There were also reports that Downing Street were bricking it at the prospect of a Biden victory. And if Johnson wanted a relationship with America from next year, he's probably stuffed it right up now. I have said before, for all their plaudits, for all the people who go, oh, Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson, aren't they masterful? No. They're actually really crap at politics. Stunningly bad at politics. They won what they won with a combination of brazen dishonesty and weak opposition. Pure and simple. Brexit, the 2019 general election, both the same factors. They do not know how to actually play politics when the game gets tough. The polls were predicting a Biden victory for weeks. Weeks. Sure, polls can be wrong. And indeed, they were not necessarily wrong in the result. They're wrong in terms of the scale of the result. But the very concept should have caused Conservatives to at least be a bit circumspect, go a little bit quiet. Instead, when Biden attacked the proposal to breach the Northern Ireland Protocol, a number of senior Conservative MPs vented their fury towards him. Well done there. You've just insulted the 46th President of the United States. Have fun with your Brexit-driven international isolation there. Oh crap, I'm on that island. That includes me. Bugger. Because not even America's going to be a port in the storm now. But it got worse. That was a few backbenchers. You can distance yourself from what idiots like Ian and Duncan Smith say. As the results were coming in, right from the results coming in, it has always looked like a Biden victory. At no point has it looked like, oh, Trump's going to take this. It's been close. Technically, it's still not certain, but it's been close. But it has always looked like Biden. Johnson was asked to confirm that all votes should be counted after Trump's rantings. He did not do so. So basically, he sided with Trump at a time when and this is what got me, even when senior Republicans were distancing themselves from Trump and his behaviour, Boris Johnson and his government were, if not robustly backing him, still refusing to condemn the sort of behaviour that even Republicans were happy to call out as undemocratic. And it wasn't just Johnson himself. Dominic Raab, this is someone who aspires to replacing Johnson, also refused to back what should be a democratic norm. And a replacement of Johnson absolutely will be needed. I think it was on its way anyway. I'm not going to say this is the thing that will get rid of Johnson. I think he was on his way out anyway. Regardless, his incompetence has just pissed off too many Conservatives. And I think that Brexit is the only thing keeping it in place right now. And that can only last for a few more months. But Biden has stood as the anti-Trump candidate. Johnson is the Trump mini-me. He's the Trump aping Prime Minister. Now, beyond a few diplomatic pleasantries, there's surely no way that Biden and even other senior Democrats, there is no way that they are going to be eager to waste much time on the UK with Boris Johnson in charge. Because Boris Johnson's not going to change his behaviour. Remember, Biden and the Democrats in general, they're not just pissed off with Trump, they're pissed off with that behaviour, that style of behaviour, that level of dishonesty, that brazen lying, those use of populist techniques. These are techniques Johnson is still using right now. Even if he tries to kiss their arse, he's still using those techniques. They are abhorrent to the Democrats. They should be abhorrent to the Conservatives. The Conservative Party can't abandon America. We have literally no other ally in our Brexit adventure. Not that Biden will allow the US to be an ally there either, but the Conservative Party is going to need to work with Biden. And so it will be forced to drop everything that is a barrier to that. That's going to have to mean jettisoning Johnson before they can even think about a close relationship with Biden. Another influential Democrat recently said, I saw this on a tweet a few weeks ago, I'm old enough to remember when Boris Johnson said Obama opposed Brexit because he was Kenyan. Ooh, they remember that, Mr. Johnson. They remember that when you called out their boy unfairly. It was a bit racist, actually, Boris. I don't think they really liked that. And those words are now going to haunt Johnson. You know, they may have played well for Trump. Oh yes, I'm sure they got a bit of a smirk from the Trumpster, but poison to an administration that is the complete opposite of President Tiny Hands. And let us not forget, Joe Biden was Obama's vice president. But it's not just Johnson. The MPs who insulted the new president presumably need not apply for senior influential roles. It will also surely mean that Dominic Raab's less than sparkling time in the limelight will have to be over. There have been a few others as well that have foolishly excused Trump's behaviour when you'd have thought they'd have wanted to just say nothing at all. Crawl under a rock, not even do an interview. That would have been the sensible course of action. This is how bad the current Conservative leadership really is at politics. In a week when it always looks likely that Biden would win, they still backed Trump. You could sort of think if they had some reason to disbelieve the polls, but in the week when it was looking like Biden was going to win, they still backed Trump. It should have been easy to say, of course, the votes should count. And then later on, you can always say, we only meant that, of course, the valid votes should count. If there were invalid votes, of course, they shouldn't count. You're not contradicting yourself, really. So simple. And that's not interfering with a foreign election. That's just stating what a democracy is. Reading from a dictionary is not interfering in anything other than maybe a game of Scrabble. But they threw their lot in with Trump, even as it was clear he was on his way out, barring a quite bizarre sequence of events that, with Republicans abandoning the orange one, seems very unlikely. Johnson's government now stands alone in the world of populists. Yes, there are other populists. There are others of his mould, Brazil, Russia, and so on, but not amongst our close allies. We're not going to get anything from any of the countries that now have Trump-like dictators in charge. A US trade deal was all he had. Now he's not even going to get that without a closer relationship with the EU. The sort of US trade deal he wants, he's not going to get. And when it comes to those negotiations with the EU, does he think the EU haven't been listening? Does he think they're oblivious to all this? They will know what's going on here. They will see how desperate the Conservatives are going to be now at the start of the year. Because whatever we get at the end of this year, by the way, whether we get a deal or no deal, that's not the end of it. There's more negotiations to come. Because even if we now get a deal, it's going to be quite a thin deal. We need to have a much closer relationship now. So we've got a lot more discussions to have with the EU. They will know how desperate we are. At the start of the year, at the start of this year, Johnson said that he was going to play off the US against the EU to get great deals from both of them. How's that plan working out now? Finally, some have said that Biden will be the end of Brexit. Of course, it won't. We've left the EU. Sad but true. And although we may see Johnson now scramble into action for an EU deal, we'll still believe in the transition period chaotically in 8 weeks, with no clear route back into the EU, at least while this government persists. Brexit is just beginning. But the path that it will now take is surely going to change significantly, which is still to the good. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.